Thank you, everyone. So we have our next session, the OS of Trust. UID has enabled instant online delivery verification. Yet, would you just trust a stranger because you can verify their name? How do you ensure that the person you're dealing with is not a habitual defaulter or a criminal? Instant trust is not possible as long as customer or partner onboarding remains a very manual, lengthy, and costly process. This panel will cover the new trust infrastructure, the technology and social infrastructure to instantly verify, not just identify, but the profile and reputation of who you are dealing with. So we have our speakers and a moderator, K.S. Vishwanathan. KSV is a Vice President, Industry Initiatives, NASSCOM. He's around 30 years of general management and leadership experience in the India business context building, key executive relationship, and a strong customer capital in diverse business environment. His work experience has largely been in the IT industry and social sector, comprising of developing and executing operational strategies, managing customer engagement programs, driving sales processes, escalation of businesses, maintaining the key relationship management with senior executives of internal and external stakeholders, and establishing models for customer acquisition and retention. So we welcome Ajay Trehan, founder and CEO Authbridge, Venkat Ramana, CEO ValuePitch, and KSV as our panelists. Thank you. Sorry, Abhay Johri, Head Digital Consumer Bank, IDFC. My apologies, Abhay.
Just before I start, how many of you have the fintech background here? One. So let me ask others, what is your background here? Is it health tech? Are you product companies, startups? How many of you startups here? Thank you, sir. Your fintech and startup, that identification is done. The reason I'm asking this question, I'm taking this cue forward from the previous session when someone said, how real is banking? Are you going to go through banking experiences, banking, etc.? In either of those two cases, what is important is you deal with data. You deal with infrastructure to deal with data. When I mean infrastructure deal with data, it is just not your physical digital infrastructure. It is also your emotional, perceptual, behavioral, and other trust as an infrastructure. So this session, what we're going to discuss is the operating system of trust. How do you deal with customers from a developer's perspective and product development perspective, from a startup perspective? What does it take? Use cases of how does the whole trust gets built with your end customers across. So in my panel, while Linika did introduce people, Abhay, he represents IDFC Bank, is claim to fame. You go to IDFC Bank, you can open your account less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes is what the record is. And what they do is a leverage on a very strong framework of infrastructure. Again, when you say infrastructure, is not physical infrastructure alone, and trust as an infrastructure. Then you have Ajay. Ajay enables the trust. Ajay enables the trust, leveraging the capacity that's required, ensure that your authentication and background is excellently mapped so that it doesn't waste any time. And especially in a banking environment, it is true in any other enterprises, what is now, especially when you're today dealing with customers who are miles away, several miles away, globally several kilometers separated, how do you deal with a person you're hiring, the person you're dealing with has got right credibility? That is provided by Venkat, who provides criminal verification system. So what is important is you heard in the morning session today where Arun said, talking about when you ultimately start engaging with a fintech community, when you start engaging with the product development community, when you start engaging with your end customer, what matters is trust. And how do you build trust? How do you build trust with the customer? How do you leverage innovation on infrastructure to provide trust? How do you enable trust? It will be the core of the theme today. So before I start, I would request starting with Abhay to give a broad overview what you do, what according to you is the word trust means.
Okay. Hi everyone. Uh, I look after digital infrastructure for IDFC Bank. IDFC was one of the two banks that got a universal bank license about 2 years back, and that was after a gap of 14 years. And financial services is one industry where trust is actually an underpinning. It's a fundamental. It's something that you just don't mess around with. I would say maybe medicine and hospital and care is another industry where trust is a very, very important factor. So let me just first talk about when we say trust, what do we mean? Yeah, and it goes both ways. Can companies and banks trust customers? And that's very, very typical, especially when you're lending to them. And the other one is, can customers trust companies? Which is when they buy a product, they want something which is of exceptional quality, or at least quality as advertised. And also, should there be an issue, that they trust the company enough to respond to it very, very fast. Yeah. So that is fundamentally what trust is. How do companies ensure that they improve on this whole trust factor? I would say there are three things. The first and a completely non-negotiable one is integrity. Yeah. The second one is competence, and the third is transparency. Yeah. And let me just talk about these three prongs of trust. The first one is integrity, and the most important thing there is that you keep your promises. Yeah. And that is what integrity is. Say what you do and do what you say. Yeah. The second part of integrity is you just don't keep your promises. You remember your promises, is you train your employees to make sure that they continue to keep the promise that's been made to the customer. So that's integrity. So if you do these two things well, you get the first prong, which is integrity, right? Yeah. The second one is competence, and competence is you got to be exceptionally good at what you do, which in turn, so doing well is an internal thing. How do you project it to customers is you exhibit a lot of consistency. Day after day, month after month, year after year, the dial tone consistency of what you promised is actually delivered. And the problem with trust is it has two attributes. One is longitudinal, which is the more that you experience the consistency, the greater your trust grows. And the second one is that it is not transferable, which means that you have experienced trust, you can talk about it, but for your friend to experience the same level of trust, he or she also has to experience it. Yeah. So therefore, consistency is very, very important. You cannot waver from what you promise to the customers in terms of delivery. Yeah. Another component of consistency is that sometimes things will go wrong. Yeah. When things go wrong, be truthful and respond fast to go back to what is it that you had promised and compensate the customers for the breach that was inadvertently or beyond your control. Yeah. So that calls for the second prong of this entire trust component, which is competence. And the last piece is transparency. You got to be extremely transparent to the extent that you can. Obviously, there's intellectual property and there is some stuff that you just can't share with the customer, but to the extent possible, you should be very clear of what your policies are. You should be very clear of what your ingredients are. You should be very clear of what it takes for the customer to buy your product in full disclosure mode of exactly what is the promise that he's buying. Yeah. So transparency is really the last tenet. Now, to pull these three components out, you need a very, very solid infrastructure. And a part of the infrastructure is the tooling. And it could be privately owned and publicly owned. And I would say we're extremely lucky as a country where the government has actually embarked on building this entire infrastructure. And there are private folks, Ajay and Venkata here, which are actually helping us build these various components so that we can demonstrate integrity, competence, and trust.
How critical, you did mention that, but in your role or in your business of earning trust, we have community here who build developing products for the community, etc. A lot of critical role is played by technology.
Yes. So, the way we look upon it is, we run three banks. So there's an analog bank, which is checkbooks and ATMs and contact centers and branches. We run a digital bank, which is our website, our apps, and our entire media presence. There's a third bank, which we call the BAP, bank as a platform, where we are very happy to expose a balance sheet to all the developer communities via APIs, and they're all federated, and we can jointly go to the market with the entire developing community to actually bring disruptive and innovative products onto the market. So very happy to
See,
state
if
that.
any of the communities sitting here would like to engage with you to take your data and take it to the marketplace, the APIs are available for them to play around with and
Yes.
take it.
Sure.
And from your context, what trust do you expect from them?
Yeah. So the trust is, end of the day, the promise will, in bank as a platform.
So
it's
they
the
should
third bank.
support your less than 5 minutes attitude?
No, so that's a promise we make on our own media. On some of the platforms, it could be shorter than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Hypothetically, let's say if you were to do something with Facebook, it could be shorter than 5 minutes because half the data is anyway declared by the customer.
So when you put in a query to them,
Yeah.
if they respond to you less than 5 minutes, you start trusting them to begin with, they are aligned to your goals.
So that's the first component, which is just say what you do and do what you say. But you got to do it consistently, month after month, year after year, and that is how it grows. And which is what trust is not built in a day.
That is right.
Like I mentioned, it's longitudinal and non-transferable. So you got to be very, very careful about how you do it. So when we go to market with our partners, and there are a couple of partners where we jointly make a promise to the customer, and it works.
That brings one more question to you, a question to me. When you're working with any other community, creating a joint product and delivering value to the customer, where does the buck stop?
The buck stops at the tenets of the partnership. Yeah. So risks are shared and rewards are shared.
Good point.
But ultimately, it's not a caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. The buyer is made very, very explicitly clear and transparent manner as to what is the promise that is being made. And obviously there are obligations, especially in lending products, of the buyer to actually, repay, back in appropriate tenor and, time. And there's a price for that entire set. So the promise is made jointly and the promise is kept.
Ajay, from your context, the world is moving towards where you are possibly the community here, they're never going to meet their end customer or possibly never going to meet their end supplier. Is all going on trust. And as Abhay said, it's also important you build that generation of trust for a period of time. Your company specializes in creating that enabling trust as an infrastructure. Could you give a perspective of what you do in terms of building this capability for an organization to be successful to the end customers?
Sure, thank you. So in Oddbridge, we started first to look at the employment space. 11 years ago when we started, we said employers need to trust employees and what can be done to enable that process. And we started a services organization, which is what Oddbridge is. Actually, this is how the origin of Oddbridge is. A large services organization which works with close to about 600-700 employers across the country and helps them understand their prospective employees better. So, verify their antecedents quickly and robustly. We eventually moved on to building a series of capabilities, largely delivered as APIs now to our end customers, where you can verify three broad tenets of an individual or a company. One is its identity. So whether the individual gives you an Aadhaar card or a PAN or a passport or a driving license or a voter ID, Oddbridge provides you APIs that can help you, verify all of these tenets literally instantaneously. Second is profile, which is what is this individual all about? I mean, what is his education, employment? If it's a company, then who are the directors, shareholders? What are the charges this company has? What kind of business this company has been doing? All of that is delivered to our customers as APIs for them to then use and do whatever they want to build on top of it. And the third is reputation, where we look at whatever is available in the civil and criminal jurisdiction, where we work very closely with Venkat, and I'll leave him to discuss that. And web and media, and there's a lot of information, as Abhay also shared, on social media. So how to look at that information, both for an individual as well as for a company, to enable processes where an individual could be engaging with an individual in a P2P lending environment, in the fintech space. A company may like to build trust with an employee. An employee may like to know more about a company. A company may like to know more about its vendors, distributors. So we bridge all of those gaps through APIs with which you can just basically look at data. So that's how we offer it to our end customers and we're seeing increasing focus. So for example, one of the largest cab aggregators in the country today uses our identity management tool to instantaneously figure out who the person who's kind of applied for empanelment is. Now imagine yourself asking for a Uber cab and getting that confidence that this person who's behind the wheels is actually the person whom Uber is saying that person is. So so that kind of capability comes in fairly instantly through APIs, and I'm sure a lot of new products and applications which are being developed would require that kind of a capability. So keeping that in mind, we built the whole truth infrastructure which any organization can use depending on its use case.
So there are two things you're saying. Are you saying when the trust gets built, infrastructure gets enabled, everything is great going in our country, if I call a plumber at my home, identification हो गया, कर लो काम जब करना है, घूम के आता हूँ. Is there a situation possible?
Well,
or a carpenter, if possible, I trust him and say, doctor walks in, please lock is yours, key is yours, जो करना है, I've done your verification identity.
Yeah. So ideally, I would like to have a predictive analytics built in to see an IBM Watson being used to do that. But yeah, I mean, keeping the first-time criminals aside, most of the data available in public domain or being made available in the domain by government through various bridges, like Aadhaar is a bridge, right? Can be used fairly quickly and efficiently to answer that question. So
you take a knowing call, whether before you allow a person to come in,
Yeah.
it's trustworthy or not.
Yes.
So some background information, everything is available on
Absolutely.
that. So what Abhay and Ajay, what you're telling the audience is, in whatever products, whatever lines of business they are in, what they're trying to build, is important they build the trust as a factor, take into cognizance the availability of infrastructure is available, keep the end customer in mind, their ability to succeed in the product journey is quicker and faster. Or am I missing anything here? Anything else that is required?
Yeah, it's you mentioned the doctor. You would trust him
See-
not by just pinging into an API that Ajay would be providing. You would actually go and check references, and preferably references of relatives and friends, and which is where this entire social piece, starts.
Actually, what
starts
you're doing
moving
is right. Typically at home, what happens is when you want to consult a doctor, you check with your neighbors. How is that doctor? Some people have got a good experience, some will say not so good experiences, and you make an average of it and just a convenience and go and do it. And if it is enabled by a technology, it builds you think your trust factor improves across.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
So there are two startups, that we work very closely with. One is a startup called Urban Clap. So where all of these services of self-employed professionals are rated. Yeah. The second one is, so you can download the app and actually you can check, how has this plumber or carpenter or doctor or nurse or the yoga instructor been doing. Yeah. So you get a reference point. So it's a social media for self-employed professionals to be judged. Yeah. So that's one example. So so the trust infrastructure also includes opinions of people that you value. Yeah. The second one that's coming around is, and this is largely an urban metro phenomena. You have these clusters of buildings, and these buildings actually have WhatsApp groups. And therefore, if you want to know the nearest thing, especially when you moved into a building, you just join that WhatsApp group, and a lot of startups are actually building aggregate of WhatsApp groups in the condo. Yeah. So in addition to just knowing the identity and knowing the references, you would also have a social angle to it, which is that you actually check with your friends and acquaintances or folks who actually stay
right.
nearby you to just validate, whether it's good enough.
And what I'm hearing you say is that day is not very far, where most of the technology and the trust infrastructure will be enabled for you, so you quickly take a decision. Where do you play a role in this, Venkat?
Interesting question. So Ajay was just mentioning first-time criminals. So stats say in India, repeat crimes happen by in the percentage of 70%. So the crimes that are done by a person who have already committed a crime is 70%. So the question here is, how do you identify that he's already
But
committed
before
a crime?
that, just give me a flavor of what you do to the audience.
Yeah. So so yeah, I'll just come to it. So the problem is, how do I know that this person has a criminal past? Okay, so the police stations in India are not really centralized, though they're trying to make an attempt. So we looked at court record data, and we've accumulated court records to the tune of 160 million records. So there are, if a case goes to police station, if it's charge sheeted, it has to go to court. Okay. Luckily, in India, the courts are centralized. So what we've done is we started gathering all the documents, started indexing them, and now there are 160 million documents of them. So we wrote lots of algorithms on top of it. Unlike in US, we don't have identity number mentioned in the record. So it simply says Venkat Ramana, Navi Mumbai, and some door number. So you need to identify that this person is Mr. X, whatever that X is. So we studied all of these documents, wrote algorithms, made till yesterday or day before some 1415 mistakes. That means we messed up 1450 times. And finally, we've come up with API and other services which Ajay and Abhay can use. So what it tells is, in any scenario, be it account opening or loan taking or an employment, plumber, whatever they're saying, can you just directly go ahead with him, or you should just wait and investigate further? So my system will say, I think he might have been involved in a cheating case. Okay, you can still go ahead, but maybe you need to just check with that particular police station for the confirmation of the identification. So it enables this trust infrastructure by fastening the decisions that you can take where there is a clear no evidence against a person, or for a small section, say 4% of the searches, say that they get delayed. So if Abhay is saying, in 4 minutes, I'll make you open an account, so it will happen 96% of the times. The 4%, I'll say, hold on, give me some time, or let somebody investigate more. So we enable this with a lot of technology, all kinds of words. You put AI, you put algo, you put learning, you put data, cloud, all of that we use. So that's what our company does. Maybe for the first time for passport applications, the police have started rejecting the applicants. So in the last 1 year, they've rejected 900 applications using our system. And in airport, people are not giving passes. So much so that last year, the 200,000 police applicants have been vetted through our system. Despite our pleading, the police went ahead and published our name in the paper. So from that day, you won't see my site online. It simply says page under construction, site under construction. We went like completely off the radar.
But one question to all three of you. With so much happening around cloud, so much happening around infrastructure, you have your India stack, you have your digital locker, you have your e-authentication, you have identification, etc. done there. Do you see at some point of time there will be the inflection point that the cloud infrastructure is not good, not adequate, or trust infrastructure, more innovation is required? So do you wait for, if you call it the hourglass, do you wait for innovation to happen in the infrastructure before you develop your innovation on the APIs, or you constantly look for APIs that could be developed for your product to be successful?
Yeah. It's a classic chicken or egg, and the way to look upon it is there is supply, which is infrastructure, and then there is demand, which is companies actually figuring out use cases as to how to service customers better. And my sense is that demand precedes supply. If there is a demand for it, commerce will figure out a way to bring it at the appropriate price point using the right technology. So the way things are, there is a huge demand building up for this. And the demand is largely coming from, I would say, two very important factors. One is that customer adoption is, the term I would use is hyper adoption. It took us, about 60 years, for a television to reach, a billion mark. And it took us 2 weeks for Pokemon Go. That is the kind of hyper adoption that, 15 years ago, or 30 years ago when I started working, The question always was, will customers do that? The thing is, they will do it. If it adds value, they'll do it. The point is how reliably and how consistently you can actually provide it. So demand is there, and my sense is from a supply side, whether it's the cloud computing or analytics or the mobile device or the entire social media, these four forces have converged to create a fabulous, infra, for this demand to be met. So I'm very optimistic that this whole stuff will take over, and there'll be inflection points when demand outstrips the supply, and the supply side will figure out a smart way to improve itself.
No, here. So we discussed what definition of trust is: delivering consistently on integrity and building transparency to it.
Yeah.
We defined the entire infrastructure as a platform that delivers a trust. Would you like to elaborate more? What are the other elements of infrastructure that you're providing, which provides identity, authentication, criminal verification, etc., which helps you earning on the trust? What are the future directions, what you're looking at, which is changing, which a company like IDFC should look for?
With the Digital India piece and increasing number of organizations looking at being able to take business decisions very quickly, the entire trust infrastructure or the trust operating system, as you call it, is evolving. I mean, till a few months back, we were saying identity and reputation and profile. Now there is a lot more with data, with so much of data available out there. We are aggregating today, let's say, an electricity bill. We are looking at utility bills, and we are looking at customer behavior on electricity bills. Are they paying their bills on time, and can we profile something from there and see how an entity like a bank could actually use that data to underwrite the customer better. So India still doesn't have a risk-based pricing on loans, right? So I'm sure that time is not very far away when that's going to happen, and that cannot happen without data supporting it. And there is so much of data available out there. So what we realized was that if we can figure out all of that data available, and we could figure out a way to put that data in a pipe, which a lot of organizations which are developing products on top of that data would require, then we are setting up a base infrastructure, right? And then helping them build their own solutions on top of it. Now, somebody may have a use case for, let's say, a driving license data. Now, driving license data is available in the government domain. We aggregated it and we present it in a certain manner. Now, you could be building an application which may require that data in a particular manner. Now, rather than you spending time and energy in looking at the core data, you could just get a pipe. And that helps your process of, your go-to-market for your product becomes much shorter. And there is lot of new data which is coming up, and a lot of new ways of analyzing that data that we are constantly evolving. So this whole trust operating system piece, or the whole skeleton that we are providing, that will help us put eventually the product companies to put meat around trust is what we are doing. So there's a lot still to be done.
What I noticed in this group is each of them seems to be dependent on one another. So let me just twist the question back to Venki first. What are the two things you want Authbridge and Ajay and Abhay to change so that your life is made simple? Are they having skyrocketing expectation? Be ready for your similar question. So you check what is it, if only verification has been better, if only criminal record system, you can possibly go from 6 minutes to 4 minutes. What are the expectation which others are missing currently? Sure.
I think they're right in expecting.
No, be transparent. You said be trust, is transparency,
I'll be transparent. So I think you're right in expecting us to deliver the results fast. Okay, so you need to take a decision like instantly, saying go, no go, give a loan or not, give a passport or not. Okay, should I put him behind the bars or not? Okay, the problem comes is not with the demand. Okay, like he said, we have to figure out a way. So we've deployed huge machine learning, artificial intelligence on our databases and helping with manual efforts. So we trained the system with million cases last year, okay, with real actual cases. Unfortunately, none of them, like Google, Amazon, no machine learning artificial system, intelligence system is able to help crack this problem yet. So our delivery timelines have not really improved, though they've improved from like 7 days to 2 days to next day. And our hit rate has gone like 15 times. But I think we are very long way to supply the demand that he's saying. And I don't know, like maybe.
So you
next
want him
year or
to
so-
relax his norms of 5 minutes?
No, he
Steve?
can't.
He can't. He can't.
No, no,
That's the reason why.
So I'll interject here. I mean, won't take credit away from what Venki
But
and
what is
Steve
your
has
expectation?
done.
What is it, if only you could do better,
No, no,
your life is
so,
simpler.
Yeah. So there are realistic challenges when we look at data which is unstructured, right? And the beauty is that we are trying to make some sense in that data. But what that has done is, while for 96% of the cases, the decisioning has
Correct.
become very quick. For the remaining 4%, we are having to look at more processes on top, based on the inputs as to what else can be done to bring that number of 4% down to maybe a 0.5% or 0.25%. So there are other services and other APIs available to solve that problem. So that's how it is. So I think the expectation is that we have to constantly, we would like them and, to
What would
constantly
you
keep
expect
working on
IDFC
the
Bank
science.
to be better for you to be more successful in your business?
We would want IDFC Bank to keep growing. I think
So
that's
he is
the-
essentially saying you're not growing. So what is holding your growth?
No, they're growing. They're growing leaps and bounds, and
So
we want
is
them to grow
are
more.
Are you saying if only you had done criminal record system to 97%, if only you had improved the trust infrastructure, if only you got right people in, your technology would have taken you to the next trust factor?
Yeah, it's far exceeded expectations thus far. So let me just put it there. The bigger issue now is going to be all of us actually are leaving huge digital footprints everywhere, and not all of us fully realize the implications thereof. So I think one of the components that is missing on the supply side is, for lack of a better term, let me call it customer preference center. That the customers should be able to tell you will use this piece of data of mine, and more importantly, you will not use this piece of data of mine. Yeah. And if you were to use this piece of data, then this is how you will pay me back. Yeah. So, there's a saying in Silicon Valley these days is that if you are not paying for something, you are not the customer. You are actually the product, and there is someone else who's actually buying you, for that. So you got to be very, very careful about. So there's a part of the trust infrastructure which is preferences. Yeah. There is another part of the infrastructure which is, again, for the lack of a better term, I'm calling it customer 360, where for every element, for every prospect, every individual, an individual, someone who has 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 eyes, there are dimensions of who you are, and some of the dimensions change very rapidly. For example, if you go from point A to point B, every millisecond your location is changing. There's some dimensions that don't change, like a gender. I mean, unless you have an operation and change your gender, those things don't change. Some of the changes occur very gradually. You get birthday once a year. Yeah. So at every change points, there will be triggers around trust. So what can you share? What can you not share? So therefore, I would say this customer 360 and a customer preference center are two missing components in the trust infrastructure. That will help us do a better job, on the 3 tenets I talked about.
So back to the audience. What you hear from them is, when you're building your product or solution for end customer, have the trust in mind. At the end of the day, it's constantly evaluating not your product, not your solution, but constantly evaluating whether you are trustworthy or not. Trustworthy as defined by the panelists and as supported, enabled, etc. Any questions you have, do you think it makes you relevant when you sell your product to the marketplace or when you develop your product to the marketplace? Yes, sir.
Hello. This is Gaurav from Accorad Labs. My question is to Ajay and Venki. So I want to understand this. You have heard our Prime Minister deliver some promises around black money these days. And I want to understand what your organizations can do in tracking. You're tracking a lot of data for people, that this guy is doing this is a criminal, this is not a criminal. Can there be a day where I can just, through your API, say this guy has black money?
Well, so it's a billion-dollar question. The answer is, so it's all data, right? And a lot of data on individuals' personal spend and earnings, right, is private data and is kept and made available only with the regulators and only with the law enforcement agencies, right? So at some point in time when government decides to use the capability that people like us are developing to enhance how they want to use that data, I think we can answer that question for them. We can definitely give them algorithms, we can definitely give them a lot of infrastructure that we've developed to help them take those decisions faster. Having said that, I'll also say we've come a long distance from where we were maybe a couple of years, 2-3 years ago today to where we are right now in terms of data availability, in terms of how government departments are looking at organizations like us. But we still have a long way to go. So capability is there, but the right agencies have to use it.
There are two angles to it. I'll just give you a question. I'll take a repeat question from you again. There are two angles to it. One is that does the capability exist for it to detect? Linika is one of the bank. Does the capability exist for it to detect it? Or is evolving? Will it ever get caught? Answer is yes. At least even the current demonetization, remonetization, what you have gone through, at least they know where the money is laundered. At least the extent they know. Question is, the point which he's saying is, will they do it or not? Is a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, Abhay can give examples from underwriting, where we look at a bank statement supplied by a customer, and you run basic analytics on his credit and debit, and you can say, okay, there is a red flag.
Yes.
You can just look at a bank statement and do very basic 3 or 4 algorithms, and say there's something wrong with this bank statement. Right? Now it's for you to explore it further. Now, I'm sure with income tax department privy to a lot of data, if they were to use it properly, they can find a lot. So they're already doing it, right? We heard it yesterday. They said 18 lakh people who had large deposits during demonetization will be scrutinized, right? So obviously somebody's picked up that 18 lakh number from somewhere.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Varun, and my question is for Abhay. Now, this is not related to slightly different. It's more about the financial sector trusting the cloud providers.
Yes.
I think, and now with Mr. Trump coming into the picture and the country is going different ways, how does your bank kind of see moving your data to cloud and hosting it on another server?
Okay. So two things first on the cloud. The first thing is the clouds are actually rooted on the ground. Yeah. So the cloud is a huge misnomer. I mean, a better term for it is actually rented servers. So do you want to own your servers or do you want to rent your servers? Yeah. So yes, we want to rent our servers. Why? Because then you get pay for performance. And that's a very, very smart thing to do, and it doesn't matter whether you're an incumbent or a disruptive new force. So should one do cloud? Yes, one should do cloud. Second is, rented servers now are no longer just in sovereignties which are managed by Donald Trump. Yeah. So you got servers in Bombay, you got servers in Bangalore, and you can tell AWS or Azure as to you want servers based out of this set. Yeah. So that's another thing that's gone in favor. The third thing is that there is some information which can be traced back to an individual, and there's some information which doesn't matter. And by individuals, I mean their customers and their prospects. Yeah. With prospects, you can be a little more liberal because you are not really governed by folks who are not your customers who just be looking for responses. So prospects is an easier one to move on to the cloud. With customers, any PII, personally identifiable information, is then hashtag encrypted before you move on to rented servers. Yeah. So I've answered your question in 3 nuances. Yes, cloud computing is important because it's a fabulous price performance, kind of a ratio. Second is that the servers are now rooted on the ground and they are in domiciles. And the third one is you can actually encrypt stuff.
But from a financial service perspective, already some regulations are placed that what data should remain in country, out country, in company, in cloud.
That's
all those parameters. In any case, regulator, the president comes, it doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't
make difference to that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Parth.
What are the metrics? Fintech startup.
Okay.
What are the metrics through which we measure how much trust have we earned for the customer? What metrics do we use? And apart from that's first part of it, and second part is, apart from trust, what would be the second or third major component that you would look for while building an enterprise? trust being the most important one, what would be the next two which we should keep in mind?
Okay. Good question. Metrics, the metric that was typically used by all corporates and with a lot of empirical data to vet it to actually, performance, in the commercial markets was NPS, Net Promoter Score. So you had detractors and you had advocates. And advocates, the question was a very simple on a 10-point Likert scale. How likely are you to recommend this product to your family and friends? And recommendation was an important thing, that if you did not trust the company, you would not recommend the company. So NPS is a good candidate. But now it's actually become more direct. Is, do you trust this company to do the right thing? And you can again, measure it on a 10-point scale. And anyone with 6 and above is an advocate. Anyone with 0 to 5 is a detractor. And you can do a net score out of that. Yeah. So that's the metric. Now, how are commercial enterprises judged? Typically, you have a balanced scorecard. So you have elements of customer satisfaction, you have elements of finance, you have elements of good corporate stewardship. So it depends on which industry you are in and what's the stage of evolution. If you are a startup, if you are a disruptor, then I would say market share is more important than profitability. But if you are in a market which is stable, you have just 1 or 2 large competitors, then it would be a ranking as to whether you're number 1 or number 2. And not so much your profitability, because that could evaporate. If you're somewhere in the middle, then market share and profitability in equal measure. Yeah, I mean, that's...
Thanks and appreciation. Yeah.
The next topic is very interesting.